from the Workplace Ninja Summit in Baden. Smart talks, sharp insights, and stories worth sharing. This is the Workplace Ninja podcast.
Good morning. We already started day 2 with the keynote speaker. So we had already Daniel van Buren from the technical CTO, CISO for Microsoft in Switzerland. We have them already. So have a look at our YouTube channel with all the information that he shared. But we are continuing our podcast interviews this day. So we had a few upcoming. My name is Frans Oudendorp and I'm with
Kenny Buntings.
Kenny Buntings from Belgium.
Of course.
And as always, co-hosting my session, not as always, but I had Alex Benoit in the previous one. I'm so lucky that I've you guys here because you can ask the difficult questions. I do not know anything, so...
We are just lucky, there's no Microsoft here. It's like now we can go all in really deep. We can ask the right questions and get to real answers.
Yeah, because we have on the table Janic and Nicola. So before starting, let's have a quick introduction of you guys. Janic, can you start?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so my name is Janic Verboon. I work as an endpoint consultant at BaseVision. We are a Microsoft partner based here in Switzerland.
Nicola?
Yeah, my name is Nicola Suter. I also work for BaseVision together with Janic. Besides that, I was working as a security consultant and part of the CTO team within BaseVision. And I'm also a Microsoft MVP in the area of security for Microsoft Intune and SIEM and XDR.
So we have important people on the table, like any.
Yeah, like always.
Yeah, definitely. And we're talking about Intune Misconfiguration. That's one of the sessions that you guys run tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, maybe it's not to give away already everything in the session, but I think Intune Misconfigurations, you're doing this session because there is a need for it. I think a lot of people, organizations, open the console, start playing with Intune. They think they're doing things really good, but at the end, So, what do you think, aside from giving everything away in the session, would be the number one mistake a lot of people do directly? Anything you can say, like, okay, this is what we've seen like 90% of the time?
Yeah, so what I think what a lot of people struggle with is, with Intune you have especially all of these default tenant settings, right? And what we see a lot, or basically what Nicola and what we are doing a lot within BaseVision with our customers, we do these Intune assessments, where we do an assessment of the tenant, of the customer, we check all the default tenant settings, we go into more details, we ask the customer for documentation, for processes and everything. And what we really often see is that, because Intune has all of these different menus and there are lots of default settings, and if you don't configure them correctly, you're up for a bad start sort of with your setup, right? So if you don't configure, as an example, the enrollment restrictions, right? You get personal devices within your Intune which you maybe don't want, right? And then you accidentally onboard them to Defender and then stuff like that happens, right? Or another example is you don't configure the default compliance policy correct, so that devices which don't have a compliance policy, they show up as compliant, which means if you're using conditional access, those devices will get access, although they don't are patched or are not on board to Defender whatsoever.
Behind the question behind these kind of misconfigurations, what is the most critical issue that organizations have if they have misconfigurations in their estate, in their workplace estate, so to say?
I think a real practical example is there was decided to, for example, conduct a hardening on the endpoints or just apply a configuration, and it was always assumed, for all of the Windows devices the configuration will arrive, but in fact it didn't, because there was the targeting wrong in the policy, there was maybe a policy conflict, and over time the technical debt has maybe increased in the Intune estate itself, because suddenly there was just a POC for a Windows device, but then there were shared devices introduced, there was co-managed devices maybe in the tenant, so the complexity has grown over the time and the Intune tenant maybe didn't get the law of it actually needed to make sure to also accommodate future use cases in the tenant itself.
Yeah, that I find a nice word, not having enough love.
And maybe coming back to Kenny's initial question, what's the thing we're like seeing the most? So the first thing, Janic and I are always joking around, so we go into the Intune portal and there's this famous setting which says mark devices without the device compliance policy assigned as compliant. So that's usually the first thing we check to see like the maturity of the tenant.
Yeah, I think, are you guys going to talk only on Intune side, or are you also going to talk about what is around it? Yeah, you talk about compliance, but you also have conditional access identity. That's at least what I see. A lot of customers also forget about the things around it. They are like before the SCCM admin, but they never touched AD. And now, yeah, you need to also look at these kind of settings and parts. So is this something you are going to show as well in your session?
That's a perfect question or hook for a session I will have today with my friend Lori. So we're doing exactly the same kind of session format also today in the afternoon. We'll be talking about the more security-related misconfigurations, where we have basically Enter ID as a strong focus, but also the Defender XDR stack, where we're basically doing the same. So it's the same kind of format of session. We'll also be sharing some stats and figures. So out of 10 tenants, how often we see the misconfiguration appearing. So we want to bring this back to the community a little bit.
Yeah, that was in addition to that before. How often do you see misconfiguration impacting security posture in real-world environments? That was one of the questions that I have prepared, but maybe elaborate a little bit more on the misconfiguration impacting security. Is that, yeah?
I mean, in the end, there's lots of things I think which you can do wrong. I mean, also, sort of what we see is that. I mean, when I started working with Intune, was the same, right? You know, to understand how Intune works, right? Because previously you had like your configuration manager, you had collections in there to apply certain settings, you had group policy, which had a hierarchy, right? And with Intune, it's completely different. So there we have Enter ID groups, right? We don't have which we need to leverage to assign stuff. So we no longer just link a GPO at the top of our domain root and then we know it will apply to every object. That's one thing. And then of course also what I think is still also not that well explained maybe, how policies are applied there, right? And if you don't get your groups right, you don't have a strict assignment strategy, right? In the end, this will impact your security posture because your policies don't end up on the devices or on all of your devices, and then you get gaps within your environment, right? And I think that's really sort of one of the most crucial things which go hand in hand with having that clear assignment strategy, having a good assignment strategy, and using it across your whole estate for all the policies and everything that you have.
How easy is it to find policies that are assigned to me as a user? Is that I know that there are some community tools around. Sander Rosenmüller, for example, has built it.
Sandy has built one.
Sandy, and I think there are a few others as well. I think it's not that easy to get these kind of misconfigurations within Intune. What do you see? That kind of community tools needs to be there, or?
I mean, sort of community tools definitely help with discovering misconfigurations, right? But I think what's really important is that you have a clear internal strategy on how do we assign stuff, right? Do we use device-based targeting, user targeting, etc.? These kind of things, that you have a well-established architecture for that internally.
Yep.
And then use and enforce that across the board, and not that for every new app you create a new group or a new whatever.
But it's funny you mention, not funny that you mention it. It makes sense. I mean, Intune is like a provisioning tool, right? Just like SCCM is doing that. But if you said it earlier, some people make mistakes. They allow personal devices to be enrolled, but that's also a strategy, right? You need to have that across the board. You need to discuss that with the security team. What are you allowing? What are you not allowing? And keeping those clear architectural lines. Do you see companies struggling with that also in Switzerland to formally make decisions, because the persons that need to be most protected are mostly also the guys that don't want all this things on their phone, and
they want to have their devices managed, for example. That's always a challenge. But
yeah. So is this a struggle you see as well in your day-to-day life to get that formalized, and you come with a lot of advice, but how do you see that being adopted and also being executed?
Yeah, for sure. So like, especially organizations with a lower maturity, they sometimes come off with statements, okay, for our organization, BOYD is not allowed. That was a decision. But then from security perspective, also coming back to the question which Franz asked, how often are we seeing those kind of things? So we're seeing it actually on a daily basis, because sometimes misconfigurations are identified based on a security incident, for example, and we see, hey, the user had an Outlook mailbox on his personal device, and then we talk to the customer and they say, no, BOYD is not allowed. It was a decision taken within the organizations, but the technical measures to actually prevent someone setting up that Outlook mailbox on his personal device weren't actually in place. So sometimes there's also a mismatch between the customer strategy and internal opinion or definition, and how it's actually then also reflected in the technical working. So sometimes also the technical controls are working. Maybe there's a piece of paper which states you're not allowed to use your account outside a corporate device, but the reality looks quite different.
Yeah, it's like you have the rules, you cannot drive more than 120 on the road, but there's no police to flash you.
Exactly.
Yeah. How do you typically identify these kind of misconfigurations during an assessment? We talked about some tools already, but what's the approach?
Yeah, so basically we have a prepared assessment. So basically every assessment check consists of an introduction text which gives some context about the check concluded, right? Then we tell the customer, okay, where did we check that? So where within the portal, so the customer could also go for himself. We document what's currently there. We document, okay, what should be done, so what should be sort of the golden state of that check, right? And then we write a recommendation. That could be, hey, I don't know, turn on Windows Labs as an example, just a really simple one. Or we say, hey, no, it's okay, customer is okay, there's no issue. So that's one thing, but then we also have checks which we identify using an interview with the customer, because it's not just like that we go there, because sometimes, you do sort of where we would say, hey, this is a misconfiguration, but maybe the customer has a business justification for that, right? So there's not this golden rule which applies to everything, right? And then we also conduct interviews. If the customer has documentation, we also review that documentation, etc., to get more information about the customer and his environment. And then, also we do a lot of things in interviews, asking questions, especially about processes.
If I'm an Intune admin, are there built-in tools or reports that I should use, or that it's quite often overlooked?
Yeah, I think especially the reports, a lot of people are complaining, okay, Intune does not provide enough reporting, but what we actually observe a lot, that the existing reports are like not really leveraged. For example, like the whole status plate in Intune. Janic and I always make the joke, the first thing we would do if we would work in the internal IT, maybe we're too idealistic, but is at the morning go to intune.microsoft.com and just check, hey, are there any kind of health issues? Do we have like assignment failures, non-compliant devices? The data is basically there, but you need to consume it. I think, of course, the future might provide some more benefits than, for example, to bring some more proactivity into that. So in terms of notifications, we're also prioritizing that. But yeah, as of now, it's mostly manual labor that needs to be done. But that's something what we also observe with more major customers, that the IT team really uses this data to their advantage and also provides this as some KPIs when they do internal reporting.
I think also that's like a maturity level. I mean, in the beginning, I had a lot of Intune customers that just say, hey, this reporting, it's even... it's as good as Config Manager. It's not only that fast, but at the end, I think also in that space, misconfiguration space, I think I don't know what your feeling is about that, and that's mainly my question is like, the cloud is evolving so rapidly, right? You have assignment filters now, and when you do this health check, you see customers actually using that, finding the new features. I think that's also like what we had in the past is not the way we should do it right now. So do you think there is, from maybe Microsoft, also a bit of more need to educate the customers better on that space?
I mean, yeah, that's a good one. And I mean, I know, or what I hear a lot from customers is, hey, we have so much to do, right? Because usually at some customers, you don't have a dedicated endpoint admin, right? Because this endpoint admin is also doing SAP and maybe servers and stuff like that. And then, I mean, I can fully understand you don't have the time like we do, where we focus on just that topic, right, to stay on the edge, right? But I mean, sort of from my point of view, and what I always tell my customers, hey, look, if you just want to stay up to date a little bit, definitely have once a month a look at the Intune What's New blog, right? And also use the message center and filter for Intune as an example, and then check out the new stuff from there. Because especially if sometimes things change, like Microsoft announced, hey, you need to update company portal to version whatever in order to prevent it from break it. I think, yeah, there it's not always that evidence to admins that they need to do something, and you only get that information in the message center. And I think that's something that, yeah, when I talk to customers, do you ever review the message center? No. It's really just a few larger customers which have then a dedicated endpoint team with people which are able to focus on those topics, which actually have the time to.
Yeah. And it's really easy. I'm working for a customer at the moment where these kind of topics are on par, and we were just mentioning that in the message center you have the service health, you have the message center, and you have another one. But you can enable email messages to a distribution group, to yourself, to whatever, and with that it's possible to get that kind of message, so you don't have to look into a portal, but you get the message. But you need to do some kind of configuration in order to receive it. It's not by default.
No, but also if you get a lot of these emails, people don't read them anymore. Yeah. That's also the downside of this kind of things.
I don't say anything, but there are companies that have a service for that. So just have a look at it. But yeah, go ahead.
No, I just had a side thing about that. Also, you say the message center, but also. How do you feel about Intune having like 5 different possibilities to do the same? How do you feel about that? What do you think Microsoft could do better to avoid all these misconfigurations, because you can configure them on multiple places?
I think customers, or the feedback we get, that customers are typically overwhelmed with that because it's not as intuitive as they would maybe expected. I mean, in Intune we have like a lot of different policy types. So there was custom OMA URI, there was administrative template, settings catalog, there's some stuff around endpoint security, but just explaining that to the customer, and then for each policy type you have a different kind of experience. So I think that's feedback we get all the time. For us, we can handle that because we live kind of in those tools, or in the space together with those tools. But it would be really beneficial if Microsoft would be more clear about, hey, there's now settings catalog available, transition your existing policies, or even like building that in a tool, having a banner over there saying, hey, do you want to migrate your policies into the settings catalog experience, some kind of those experiences, like guiding the customer a little bit, so that also organizations with lower maturity can benefit from that, because otherwise you're simply overwhelmed, and then also people start to search in the internet about how to do it, and they find maybe community content that was like well curated, but maybe it's outdated. Yeah. And then it's quite difficult for a customer to do the kind of due diligence. What should I do now?
Yeah, I think the same. It's also going from a thing that you implemented 5 years ago, but there are now better solutions. And I think what we saw in the keynote is that Microsoft is building a lot of these AI agents to support. Any feeling about that? Is this really going to help the customer, or do you think, this is great, but you still need an AI agent can maybe not fill in the context?
Yeah, I mean, if Copilot would be able, as an example, just something to get back to what Nicola just mentioned, is, okay, I don't know, I'm reading a blog about, certain capability, and I find a 5-year-old blog which says, hey, you need to do this via the OMA LDM, or like the custom policies, right? And I mean, then if Copilot would be able to tell you when you're creating a policy, hey, this setting is now available in the settings catalog, please configure it there. Sort of, I mean, I guess this could help guide them there. But yeah, I think it could also 100% prevented. I mean, I think Microsoft already started doing a thing where you can no longer configure certain OMA-DM policies, which are now available in the settings catalog, which I think is the first good step.
Mm-hmm.
But I think especially where they could improve is giving customers more guidance. When do you configure certain things in endpoint security, as an example, and when in the settings catalog, and what are the benefits if you do them in endpoint security, right? Because you then can leverage the security settings management for defenders.
Also tend to agree on the fact that giving the proposal that this could be done better and more on a more efficient way, this is the way where AI can definitely give you help. Yeah.
Personally, I also see like lots of benefits if you're like new in the whole Intune space. You maybe used to be a config manager admin in the past, and for example, you need to troubleshoot something. And then in Intune you start clicking around, so you see a policy is not arriving, so you visit the device and the policy and have like 5 tabs open. And I think that's a use case where hopefully Copilot is able to assist and also like bridge the gap. If you can just say, hey, the policy is not assigned, and then Copilot basically says, okay, I checked the assignment, is the device actually in the group, is there maybe a conflict? So to summarize all this kind of information so that it's actually a time saver, but also illustrating the checks that Copilot did, surfacing that to the admin, so for him also to learn. So in the future I could also directly check there. So doing those kind of comparisons which are not that obvious. So not just rewriting the information, but doing like additional data gathering and presenting that in a condensed form.
That's a good point. I was thinking like maybe that's good for Microsoft support when you open a ticket. They could do that as well, and
that's a good one. Get some data out of it. Well, I like the idea from an assessment perspective. Is there is an Intune assessment agent that you can program from an MSP perspective, so to say. So you can assess your customers once a month, once a quarter a year. So
exactly.
That should be, from an MSP perspective, is that one of the key things that I have requested already for a long time. I think that if they can realize that really helps to secure also SMBs, because there's one of the gaps. Intune for SMBs that's launched. They've launched the program, I think last week or 2 weeks before. But there is a huge gap in the enterprise. Probably misconfigurations are there as well, but in general are more highly skilled people into IT. And if you look at SMB, they have probably some small SMBs of MSPs that are helping them.
It's the same like we look in the space as MSP provider for Mac, for example. There are no Macs. There are a lot of those smaller SMB companies. They have never seen or touched a Mac in a managed state. So it's a good thing that this program is launched, and also the ecosystem in general is being adopted. Same like Intune for MAM. Those DLP things become more important because we also have those Copilot and all these AI things, prompts that are now coming by. So.
One last question. You mentioned Mac, so that pops up some things in my head. But do you see differences between misconfigurations for Windows, for Mac, for MAM, in the different areas? Is that bigger on one end, or it doesn't matter?
That's a nice question.
That's a good question. From my experience, I would say with Windows because Windows has more to manage, right? So there is more room for.
There's more you can manage.
Exactly. There's more you can manage. Yeah, that's right. So I would say on Windows because and also I think on macOS, it's a little bit more tailored to. There are less options or less different options to configure things. So there's basically you have the settings catalog, endpoint security, or a custom profile, and that's basically it.
I totally agree with you. Okay. Thanks for joining us in this recording and give some insights on the misconfiguration part. So hopefully AI will do a lot of stuff in the near future.
It's a genie in a bottle, you rub it. And
Gemini in a bottle.
But I really love the assessment agent idea. That's a cool one, because like what I would maybe also want to mention. So an assessment is often like associated with an external provider is doing an assessment and we're doing it all wrong. But we often see is also that internal teams are like some kind of relieved, because an assessment can also be a proof, hey,
I'm
you guys
doing a good
doing
job.
actually a lot of things right, but there's still some improvements that you can maybe add. So that's also a little bit of our storyline in the session. We don't want to play the smart guys and you guys doing it all wrong.
It's definitely not bashing. It's helping them and also giving them some knock on the shoulder if you have done it right. So to say. Yeah.
It's also difficult. That's where we came to the conclusion: is you can configure things on 5 different places, and it's not always clear what is the best way.
And it's not always wrong,
No.
because if you have the BYOD scenario that you have mentioned, I can enable that within the organization if there is a business need for.
Yeah,
You can disable that if you want to, but you can do it both ways. And I think there is more configuration that has the approach that is done yes or
and
no.
one part is in Intune, but other parts are in Entra, and others are in I forgot it now, MCAS, but that's renamed Definitive Cloud.
Cloud apps.
Cloud apps. Yeah, I mean, marketing confuses me from time to time.
I think we have more people that have that issue.
But so it's not only the Intune thing. It's a lot of moving parts in the cloud that you need to have under control.
Yeah, but still, because of people are managing these kind of environments,
Mistakes happen.
even if you are high skilled or whatever, mistakes are done easily.
Yes.
So assessments and misconfigurations will be there probably for a long time. So we have work to do still,
Which is good.
That's good. So thanks guys for joining. Let's have a look at your session today and probably tomorrow somewhere. Let's have a look at that. And if you want to have another look at, I think we will do some Intune management sessions today as well in the podcast, and we have also some community stage sessions coming up from our sponsors. So have a look on the stream, and if you want to watch that afterwards, they will be published on our YouTube channels. Keep an eye on our social channels. Thank you for joining. Until the next time. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for joining the Workplace Ninja podcast. Stay curious, stay connected, and keep sharpening your ninja skills. Until next time.